The 400th year of oppression. Reason I'm doing this little mini series of classes this month is because historically it's written that 1619 is when the transatlantic slave trade had begun. And now we are in, quote unquote, the year of 2019. So it's been 400 years since the ship touched down, the good ship Jesus touched down in Jamestown, Virginia, and so on, so forth. So I want to go into this because it's a lot of stuff that I have realized over the years of being in the truth that you know, a lot of us is far removed from school, but I understand that they don't teach history, and definitely don't teach it of African Americans in the school system. You have to learn this stuff outside the school system. So a lot of you all don't know, especially here in Miami, brothers and sisters that are from the islands, you don't truly know what Judah has experienced. So we can get our knowledge up about Judah and the southern kingdom in whole, because it pertains to us all. But we'll go into detail, Lord's will, about Benjamin and Levi some other time. But we'll start out with Judah for a specific reason. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 7. It's going to be a lot of history. So you can write down the names of the articles and you can go back and look at them later. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 7.
Check, check.
Oh, microphone check again for us?
Check, check, check.
Okay.
Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 7.
That's perfect.
Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee. So
it says, remember the days of old. And the reason why we have to remember the days of old, I know we live in a society that moves very fast. News is moving at the speed of light. One day something is major news, and then 2 days later it's old news. Because everything moves at the speed of light. So we live in the present, always looking towards the future. But God commands us to remember the days of old, of many generations. And the reason we got to remember it, remember the past so you know where you are in the present. Remember the past so you know where you are in the present and where you're going in the future. That's very important for us as a people. And that's why they tell us more than anybody, forget your past, because if you know your past, you can change your present and you'll ultimately change your future. Read that again, verse 7.
Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee.
Now, our fathers don't know this history because they don't understand the Bible. They don't know too much about their own history. And we see this a lot of times now on the streets. Southern Kingdom especially don't know nothing about. All they know is, a lot of them don't even know civil rights, especially the younger ones. The ones that's like, we went to the Orlando Classic. Boy was 21 years old. I said, you ever heard of civil rights? No. He 21. He don't know nothing about civil rights era. That's because they have become, the kids are dumbed down. Especially you young kids, you young brothers in here right now. I know when y'all learn this stuff and y'all drop this stuff on other brothers, they be like, man, you deep. It ain't nothing but history. But it's just they ain't learning nothing like this. All they learning is mumble rap. You go do Skittles. That's what they learning. But your father is this Bible. It's the book. These are your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Ask them, and they'll tell you. You ask by studying. That's how you ask your fathers, by studying. And it says, and he will show thee, read on, thy elders.
Thy elders, and they will tell thee.
Go to Job 8. Now, here's how we begin to ask of the things of old. Job spelled it out for us. Job, let's read 8 and 8 all the way down to verse 10.
Job chapter 8 and verse 8. For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers.
The former age is remember the days of old, and it says prepare thyself to search. Well, what's a way that how do we say search now? What do we say? When you're in school, the teachers tell you to do what, brothers? Research. Research. Job is telling you to research your history. Research the, what does it say here? The former age. And that's why a lot of our young black men, Hispanic men, they're growing up dumbfounded and being thrown in the warehouses to unload trucks. You ain't got no knowledge of nothing. You don't know no history. And it might seem minuscule, but this stuff builds on your overall understanding of your mental capacity, where your mind expands to be able to take in other things. History is a great way to expand your knowledge. So it says, research your fathers, search of their fathers. Read on.
For we are but of yesterday.
We just got here.
And know nothing.
That's why research is important. Go ahead.
Because our days upon earth are a shadow.
Read on.
Shall not they teach thee and tell thee and utter words out of their heart?
So this, when you learn history, research it, it teaches you who you are in current times. Researching history along with the understanding of the Bible, it tells you who you are right now, and you'll be able to teach others who they are once you know your own history. That's why it's so important. Go to Luke chapter 21. Luke 21, let's read 20 through 22. You got to read fairly quick. I got a lot.
Luke chapter 21 and verse 22.
Stop reading like you're in Christian church too.
For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child.
So what is Christ referring to that the things that are written must be fulfilled? What is he referring to? Manasseh had his hand up. Microphone over here. Where they at? Where you at? We got a microphone? No microphone? Okay, just say it.
The curse is in Deuteronomy 28.
The curse is in Deuteronomy 28. Thank you, AV Booth. You dropped the ball again. All right, so he's referring to the stuff written in Deuteronomy 28. Read on.
But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be a great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations.
So if you have done the research of your forefathers up until now, the they in that verse would make perfect sense. You would automatically know who the they is that was led away captive into all nations of the earth. Far too many times we ask, how did we get here? And I'm telling you, people give us all the answers up under the sun other than a daggone slave ship. That's be the last thing on their mind. But with research of your forefathers, that they in there, without even understanding Deuteronomy 28, would make perfect sense. Read it again.
And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Okay, go to Deuteronomy, let me see, Deuteronomy 33 and 7. Can y'all fix this mic? It sounds like he's speaking through a plastic cup.
Check, check. Deuteronomy chapter 33 and verse 7.
Still sounds like it. Go ahead.
And this is the blessing of Judah. And he said,
Stop, please. Anybody know how to work a mixer? I don't think it's that. I think it's the mixer sounds is off.
Test.
Go ahead.
Deuteronomy chapter 33 and verse 7. And this is the blessing of Judah.
Okay, so with this going into this 400-year anniversary, we're gonna primarily focus on Judah. Now it says, this is the blessing of Judah. Read on.
And he said, hear, Lord, the voice of Judah, and bring him unto his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him, and be thou in help to him from his enemies.
Now I brought it out last week. Why is the blessing upon Judah that he needs help from his enemies? Who's thinking? Where is it? I got 2 hands. Can I get 3? Okay, I got 3 hands, but let's go with you. Jeremiah, you had it. Why is the prophecy said be a blessing? Can we get a mic? Where you at, AV booth? We just had a mic for 3 hours straight. Now we don't have one. Just say it. He's at constant war with his enemies. Okay, all right. Anybody else? Darius, let's see what you got. Hold on, there go a microphone.
He doesn't have no land.
Okay, he has no land. Okay, anybody else want to try, Mike? How do you want to describe it?
Because everything is taken away from them, so they need the help.
Okay, all right, brothers, back earth.
Because we stay beefing with everybody we stay around with ever since we got here since 1619, sir.
Okay, all right. Always got beef with somebody around us. Okay, go to Genesis 49, right?
Yes, sir.
Go to
Genesis chapter 49 and verse 8. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies.
Thy hand, Judah would be the one of the tribes. We don't have no land. We don't have none. Gad, they got over here before us. Reuben and them, they got over here before us. Ephraim got over here before us. They all have their own plot of land. Judah ain't got nowhere to go to. Judah can't run them up like up out of here like Levi did in Haiti. We can't do that. We was brought here by him. They already populated the place. So we're going to be stuck right there with our enemies fighting tooth and nail into the day of the Lord. So Moses already prophesied, be a help to him from his enemies. Because the stuff he going to go through, they don't even know what's coming. That's why we going over this stuff. Let's see. Don't want that. Okay, go to Deuteronomy 28:1.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
Blessed when you are obedient to what I say, right? Jump down to verse 9.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 9. The Lord shall establish thee an holy people unto himself, as he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God and walk in his ways. And all the people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of thee.
So ain't nobody afraid of black people. They ain't afraid of you. They call you everything under the sun other than the people of God. And when it comes down to it, they ain't afraid of you. Not at all. Because they know you ain't got no power. You ain't got no guns. They already know that the people that they set up to patrol you don't even allow you to have them. They already know. They ain't nobody afraid of us. Jump up to verse 15.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15.
You know how you know they're not afraid of it? That's why they literally do whatever they want to when they get ready to. You see the videos of social media, they calling you whatever, keeping you from going out. They harassing you when you got a UPS uniform on and you come to the neighborhood and they call the police on you. They ain't afraid of you. They know because you can't do nothing. Read verse 15.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15.
All you can do is get mad and call them a cracker. They ain't worried about that.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes.
So it says voice. Give me the precept for voice. I got the same three hands. Does anybody in the second section know what the precept? David.
Psalms 103 and 20.
Let's go to it.
Psalms chapter 103 and verse 20. Bless the Lord, ye his angels that excel in strength, that do his commandments, hearken unto the voice of his word.
So the voice is the commandments that he tells us to keep, right? Go back to Deuteronomy 28.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments
what's the precept for to do? Okay, Abel. If you don't
Jeremiah
have
11:11.
Jeremiah 11:11? Nope. Alfred, you're a precept ahead.
1 Samuel 2, verse 3.
Let's go to it. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 3. Write that down, Abel. If you don't have it, sisters, write it down.
1 Samuel.
Somebody might ask you, explain Deuteronomy 28 to me, please. You be like, call the school. Read that.
1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 3. Talk no more exceeding proudly. Let not arrogancy come out of your mouth. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed.
Actions. To do is an action. That's what he's about. Go back to verse 15.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
What's the precept for curse and overtake, Abel?
Jeremiah 11:11.
Let's go to it.
Jeremiah chapter 11 and verse 11. Therefore, thus saith the Lord.
To show, this is what showing you what a curse is in layman's terms. Go ahead.
Behold, I will bring evil upon them.
Curses.
Which they shall not be able to escape. And though they shall cry unto me, I will not hearken unto them.
Evil that they cannot escape. Curses shall overtake you. That's the precept to help make it easy to understand, because that's our job, is to cause the reader to cause the listener to understand the reading. So let's go back to Deuteronomy 28:15.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Pull up Bible study tools, the link I got for curse. Deacon Itham brought this out a few weeks ago, right? And let's read the second, third, and fourth paragraph to show you what it means to be cursed.
Nowhere in the Bible is the state of being cursed portrayed in more graphic terms than in Deuteronomy 28:16 through 68.
So it says it is very graphic, meaning very detailed. To find out who Israel is on the face of the earth, just read Deuteronomy 28. It is in detail the life of the people that are the Israelites. Go back.
Nowhere in the Bible is the state of being cursed portrayed in more graphic terms than in Deuteronomy 28:16 through 68. The curse follows its victims everywhere.
It shall overtake thee. Go ahead.
Extending to progeny.
That means your kids will be under these curses. Go ahead.
In all means of livelihood.
Whether you rich or you poor, you will be under the curses. That's amazing how the white man Bible study tools understands that. Our people who get some money be like, oh, I ain't cursed. I'm living under the blessings of God.
Blackballed.
They still call you Negro.
Right.
Take your money away. You get, and Roger Goodell said about Kaepernick, we done with him. We finished. We moving on from Kaepernick. His money gone just like that. And the white man who's over the league got the power. He can easily say, oh, there's no problem with him. We want him. He can easily talk to one of the managers, the owners, and be like, just give the guy a spot on the team so they can get swept up under the rug. We'll give you some incentives also. He'll be on a team tomorrow. White man said, we done. We moving on with him. Money gone just like that. Go back to it.
It includes incurable diseases,
STDs,
slow starvation, abuse by enemies, exile, panic, confusion, and eventually madness.
That's us. That is the black man in America today. Right. Go ahead. Go back to it.
At the corner store begging for some change.
Yep.
Dancing to get change.
Read it quick.
Curses are usually imposed by persons in authority for major breaches of the Torah that might threaten collapse of society.
God had to kick us out. Go ahead.
Thus, in Deuteronomy 27:15 through 26, people who practice idolatry, incest, misleading the blind, ambush, disrespect for authority, and subversion of justice are cursed.
Black man, go ahead.
The curse is totally under Yahweh's control.
I like his part. It says it's totally under his control. Read it.
It is his power, not magical forces, which brings about the curse.
So what that's saying is that the white man did not wake up with a bright idea one day and say, let's go to the west coast of Africa and get Negroes. It didn't happen like that. God moved the spirit of them to go get them because, you know what? I ain't forgot about what they did. Yeah, it might have been 1,000 years ago since I kicked them out of Jerusalem and they ran and went up into Europe and they ruled all that. But I ain't forgot. Them curses are going to be fulfilled, which are written. Go back to it.
It is his power, not magical forces, which brings about the curse.
So that also lets you know, Levi, that whole voodoo stuff is baloney. And mayonnaise kept it very sick. Beef bologna too. Go ahead.
His sovereign decision alone decides who merits being cursed. He cannot be forced into action by proper wording or ritual.
So that Num Your Home Ringy, all that stuff that Tina Turner did, Angela Bassett, that don't work with God. That's why God said, when you pray, just pray and get out. Just sitting there saying the same thing over and over again ain't going. That's how you know the Jewish people over there ain't the people of God. They stand against the wall like this. No. God said, don't do that. Make it short. Say what you got to say and get out. You got billions of other prayers. Go ahead.
Thus, a curse could not be used
capriciously
as a weapon against one's personal enemies.
Okay, all right. So let's go to verse 16, Deuteronomy 28. So that's the curse. It'll follow you everywhere. And it's way deeper than what we thought when he said curse. Read verse 16. We're going to be on one verse today.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 16. Cursed shall I be in the city, and cursed shall I be in the field.
All right, so, brother, yeah, he's extra today. Can a brother explain to me what life has been like for black people in America? Look, no hands for them. Explain it. Give me a brother that was born somewhere around the civil rights movement. You brothers are millennial brothers. I was talking to my pops the other day. Come on, Naeem. Micah, who was there born? Now brothers won't be young. Dude, the gray hairs on your face show you ain't young. Can a brother with some gray hairs upon his head explain to me what life been like for black people in America? Obadiah, thank you. Let's go. These millennials don't know, man.
During that time period, it was very hard for black people, very stressful.
Give us an example of stressful of what life was like.
For instance, when we used to have marches with Martin Luther King, they used to send the dogs out and attack us with water hoses.
German shepherds.
Attack us with German shepherds. And also they used to have these large water hoses. They used to spray us with the water hose, throw rocks at us, spit at us.
Hey, now I was talking to my pops the other day about doing that. He was born in the 70s, right after that stuff. And he used to live in the hood. You know, we all come from the hood. And they shipped him out to the white neighborhoods, to the white schools. This is when busing started back in 75 is what he told me. He said when they got off the highway, because, you know, the highway always separates the poor from the middle class. When they got off the highway, he said the streets were lined for miles with white folks with signs standing up. This is 1975. The Civil Rights Act was passed in 64, and they killed King in 68. So 7 to 10 years later, 75, they was lined up on the streets for miles in Kentucky, saying, go back home. We don't want you in our schools. He lived through that. That's why I said, millennials, put your hands down. You ain't lived through that. My pops lived. And then I thought about my grandma who was born in the 40s and the 50s, who went through that where it was, you can't come, you got to go to the back door. The separate and unequal. So life in America for black people has been terrible beyond. Now this is why I wanted him to, because you brothers, you can't imagine that. You don't have to deal with that. You've got overt racism. It's a difference from covert racism. You got covert racism instead of overt racism. Overt racism is out in the open, where they'll line up on the sides of the streets and be like, "Go home, nigga," with signs. The covert racism you got now is you put in the application, they just don't hire you. That's way different than seeing it in your face. All right, that's good. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Officer Lightfoot just said something heavy. Every Judite brother in here, when did y'all have to come home? When did y'all have to be home? Before what? Before the lights come on. Why y'all think that? Yep. Because when that sun go down, it was killer nigga time.
Yep.
And through time, your great grandmother told her son, he told his sons, he told his son, make sure y'all come home for them lights come on.
Yep, especially in the deep South. Now, see, y'all, we live in metropolitan South Florida now. It wasn't always like this. You didn't have all these 95 and these highways and stuff. There's a lot of dirt roads, right? If your ship came down here at the coast of Florida, you wasn't making it to the South or to the top of the South. You wasn't making it to Kentucky. It was over. It was over. So, I mean, it's more greater detail than that, but I was just talking to my father the other day, and he expressed that to me. Now go to Leviticus 26. This is what it's like. Leviticus 26, let's read 15 through 17.
Leviticus chapter 26 and verse 16.
15 through 17.
Leviticus chapter 26, verse 15. And if ye shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that ye would not do all my commandments, but that ye break my covenant, I also will do this unto you. I will even appoint over you terror.
You going to appoint over us what?
Terror.
Terror. Appoint over you terror. And we're going to show you today some stuff of what terror looks like. A lot of you all rest your head at night easily. You lock your door, put the chain on there, and you go in there sound asleep, get your 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep, however long it be. But we have forefathers, Bible times, and especially more recent, that lived in terror. Their whole life was walking on eggshells. They had to speak a certain way or risk not showing up at home no more. That's terror. Had to look down. Couldn't look nobody in the eye. That's terror. I will point over you terror. Read on.
Consumption and the burning of gall that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart.
Disease.
And ye shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it.
Sharecropping. Go ahead.
And I will set my face against you. You shall be slain before your enemies.
Killed.
They that hate you shall reign over you.
That's what life has been like for black folk in America. Remember I said they couldn't go nowhere. It wasn't no getting independence. They could not go nowhere. Those that hate them, let them go and still rule over them, hating them. They that hate you shall reign over you. Read on.
And ye shall flee when none pursueth you.
Scatter like roaches when one cop come around. Go to the article of Black Codes. So now we read cursed in the city. But what happened in the city is what we got to find out, to where God said it's going to be terrible for you to be there. Pull up the Black Codes. Read that. What part I want to read? Read the first, second, and third paragraphs.
Black Codes, United States. The Black Codes, sometimes called Black Laws, were laws governing the conduct of African Americans, free blacks.
So you free, but they still gonna tell you how to act. You free, but they still gonna tell you how to act, niggard. Go ahead.
Free blacks. The best known of them were passed in 1865 and 1866 by Southern states.
The Emancipation Proclamation by Abraham Lincoln to free slaves so they could be equal to, what's that thing say? All men are created equal in the Constitution, right? He signs one bill to get you off, get you free, and the next thing they do is make up some laws to govern Negroes. Is that true freedom? No, not at all. Right out of slavery into another form of slavery. Read on.
After the American Civil War, in order to restrict African Americans' freedom and to compel them to work for low wages, however, black codes existed before the Civil War.
Look where they existed. Read on.
And many northern states had them.
Even if you was in the north. Because everybody say, oh, we was free in the north. No, you wasn't. You had to abide by black codes too. Read on.
And many northern states had them. In 1832, in most of the United States, there is a distinction in respect to political privileges between free white persons and free colored persons of African blood. And in no part of the country do the latter, in point of fact, participate equally with the whites.
There was no equality, and there still is none. Go ahead.
In the exercise of civil and political rights,
read on.
Black codes were part of a larger pattern of whites trying to maintain political dominance and suppress the freed men.
Remember, we own Deuteronomy 28:16, cursed in the city. Read on.
Newly emancipated African American slaves, black codes were essentially replacements for slave codes in those states.
They were slave codes replacing them. Go ahead.
Before the war,
we're going to get slave codes here in a second. Go ahead.
Before the war, northern states that had prohibited slavery also enact black codes. Connecticut, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and New York enacted laws to discourage free blacks from residing in those states.
That's why I like this. When I read it, I was like, ooh, this is going to cut them deep. To all those that say, my family was born in Virginia or born in New York or born in Massachusetts. Nah, you was a slave too. You was a slave too. They just try to put it all on the South, but it was nowhere in this country you can go and be free. Still can't. Go ahead. Read quick.
And New York enacted laws to discourage free blacks from residing in those states. They were denied equal political rights, including the right to vote, the right to attend public schools, and the right to equal treatment under the law. Some of the northern states repealed such laws around the same...
Repealed mean took them away.
Repealed such laws around the same time that the Civil War ended and slavery was abolished by constitutional amendment.
Next paragraph. Here we go.
Since the colonial period, colonies and states had passed laws that discriminated against free blacks. In the South, these were generally included in slave codes. The goal was to reduce the influence of free blacks, particularly after slave rebellions, because of their potential influence on slaves. Restrictions included prohibiting them from voting, although North Carolina had allowed this.
Okay, let's do this. Click on slave codes. Okay, so let's see. Read that.
Slave codes.
First and second paragraph.
Slave codes are the subset of laws regarding slavery and enslaved people.
You got to speed up.
Specifically regarding the transatlantic slave trade and chattel slavery in the Americas. Most slave codes were concerned with the rights and duties of free people in regards to enslaved people. Slave codes left a great deal unsaid, with much of the actual practice of slavery being a matter of traditions rather than formal law.
All right, so go down a little bit on that and click on typical slave codes. Scroll down. Typical slave. Let's see what the slave codes were. It's just cursed in the city.
Typical slave codes. There are many similarities between the various slave codes. The most common elements are movement restrictions. Most regions required any slaves away from their plantations or outside of the cities they reside in to have a pass signed by their master.
Stop. Now, it's to see, because I don't want us to get into the thought like, we don't have to do that no more. Give me an example of today's time where it says if they're outside their city, their plantations, they got to show a pass signed by their master. Let's see, Officer Daniel, what you got? Because I don't want people to think, that's old. This is back in the day. 1865, why you living in the past?
Like today, we need a passport to travel.
You missed it. You missed it. That's a good, you can use that one, but I need one more. Solomon Levi. Let's see what you got.
Let me see your ID.
There you go. What? Hold, Nick Rowe, what you doing in this neighborhood? Give me your ID. Let me see your ID. Well, you don't belong in this neighborhood. Let me your ID. You don't belong. Hold, stop. Let me frisk you. It's the same thing. Yeah, you got any warrants around you? If you don't have anything to hide, you'll show me your ID. Go back to that slave code. Do they stop other nations and do that? Nah, they do that to black and Hispanic folk, particularly Judah here in America. Go back to it. Yep.
They reside in to have a pass signed by their master.
No, read it from the top again.
Most regions require any slaves away from their plantation or outside of the cities they reside in to have a pass signed by their master. Many cities in the slave states required slave tags, small copper badges that enslaved people wore to show that they were allowed to move about.
You better have an ID. Where's your identification card? You don't need a driver's license, but where's your ID? Where's your school ID to show you belong in here? Next one.
Marriage restrictions. Most places restricted the marriage rights of enslaved people.
Ostensibly
to prevent them from trying to change masters by marrying into a family on another plantation.
Wow. Slave codes. Go ahead.
Marriage between people of different races was also usually restricted.
Read on.
Prohibiting on gathering.
Prohibitions on gathering.
Prohibitions on gathering. Slave codes generally prevented large groups of enslaved people from gathering away from their plantations.
I ain't even got to say nothing about that. You already know if too many of y'all together out on the streets, somebody pulling up on you.
Slave patrol.
Hold on. You had a song where one of the rappers, Ford Toys pull up. Everybody what?
All running.
Everybody running. Why?
That was Jeezy. What?
That was Jeezy. Yeah. He knew it. He let you know that mindset is always instilled in us.
Yep.
Soon as we see that vehicle pull up, right? Everybody scatter like roaches.
Right. And if you don't run, you get nervous. You might be too scared to run. You get nervous. Like, hey man, just be cool. Just be cool, y'all. Have your ID. Have your slave pass out. All right, go back to it. We got a lot to get through.
Slave patrols. In the slave-dependent portions of North America, varying degrees of legal authority backed patrols by plantation owners and other free whites to ensure that enslaved people were not free to move about at night and to generally enforce the restriction on slaves.
I want y'all to understand this, that when it comes to police officers in white neighborhoods, they're there to protect them from you. That's why they're there. And they patrol your neighborhood to keep you in your neighborhood, especially at night. Slave patrol. And if you and just Google the slave patrol badge when you get a chance to see what it looked like. Go back to it. I gotta get through this.
Trade and commerce by slaves. Initially, most places gave enslaved people some land to work personally and allowed them to operate their markets. As slavery became more profitable, slave codes restriction restricting the rights of enslaved people to buy, sell, and produce goods were introduced. In some places, slave tags were required to be worn by enslaved people to prove that they were allowed to participate in certain types of work. Punishments in killing of slaves. Slave codes regulated how slaves could be punished, and usually going so far as to apply no penalty for accidentally killing a slave while punishing them.
Now that sounds very familiar. No justice, no peace. Black lives matter. There's no punishment. Now they starting to do it because they're getting out of hand. They're getting out of hand, making it very noticeable now. So a few of them done been sent to jail. But on the normal, that's not the case, because they are punishing you in the act of arresting you. And we're going to get why, though, a little bit later. Cursed in the city, though. No. What are we doing? Come on, man. Stay with me. Go back to the article. Historian Lawrence
M. Friedman wrote, 10 Southern codes made it a crime to mistreat a slave. Under the Louisiana Civil Code of 1825, Art 192, if a master was convicted of cruel treatment, the judge could order the sale of the mistreated slave, presumably to a better master.
One slavery to another. Go ahead.
Education restriction. Some codes made it illegal to teach slaves to read.
Slave codes. Now go back to black codes. Is that what I want? Let's see. Typical. Yep. Go back to black codes. Pick up in on that black codes the first 2 years. Scroll down. No, this is slave codes. I need black codes. There we go. Go to where it says in the first 2 years. It starts out the paragraph. Right there.
In the first 2 years after the Civil War, white dominated Southern legislators passed black codes modeled after the earlier slave codes. They were particularly concerned with controlling movement and labor of freed men, as slavery had been replaced by a free labor system. Although freedmen had been emancipated, their lives were greatly restricted by the black codes.
Read on.
The term black codes was given by Negro leaders and the Republican organs. According to historian John S. Reynolds, the defining feature of the black codes was broad vagrancy law, which allowed local authorities to arrest freed people for minor infractions and commit them to involuntary labor.
All right, now in that Sabbath class group, click on the picture Captain Severus just sent of what the slave patrol badge looked like. There you go. Looks awfully familiar, don't it? Runaway Slave Patrol. All right. 1839, right? 39 or 59. All right, back out and let's click on vagrancy law. See what vagrancy is. Go back to it. Vagrancy. Let's read the first two paragraphs of that.
Close.
Exit out. There we go.
Vagrancy is the condition of homelessness without regular employment or income. Vagrants usually live in poverty and support themselves by begging, garbage scrapping, petty theft, temporary work, or welfare, where available. Historically, vagrancy in Western societies was associated with petty crime, begging, and lawlessness, and punishable by law by forced labor, forced military service, imprisonment, or confinement to dedicated labor houses.
So just to bring it up to speed, because this is happening 1865, 1860. This is a few months out of slavery. They throwing all this stuff into the law. If you've been enslaved for 200-something years and they just let you go, automatically, what would you become? You become a what? Vagrant. But go back to the words to show what it was. It's exactly what the term means. Read that.
A person who experienced this condition may be referred to as a vagrant, vagabond. Vagabond. I said it in Creole. That's vagabond. Vagabond. Rogue, tramp, or drifter.
Or drifter. You ain't got nowhere to go. Automatically. Now go down to, click on the laws related to vagrancy. This is cursed in the city. Joseph, what do you got? Give it to Joseph. So straight out of slavery, you ain't got nothing. Then they make up a law called vagrancy.
Yeah, about that law, basically what it was that since like us as slaves, we were just freed and we're looking for work, but the white employers, they wouldn't hire us.
Right.
So the law was if you didn't have certified work in a certain amount of time, you could be arrested.
Yep, exactly right. We go to it.
And then and there were people who would hunt people who didn't have work and arrest them.
Slave patrol. They would hunt you down. If you get freed, they don't want to give you a job. And now they make up vagrancy laws that if you don't have a job, we're going to send you to jail.
Damn, the unemployment line back then was prison.
Yeah, it's going to say that. Go back to that. Let's click on what it says, laws related to vagrancy. Now, remember it said the vagrancy law was vague. It's just like whatever you feel like you want to lock them up for, just make it up. Go to it. Scroll all the way down to United States. It's way down there. United States. There we go. Okay. Now, let me see which part I want to read on this. Second paragraph. Read the whole second paragraph. Yep, right there.
After the American Civil War, some southern states passed black codes, laws that tried to control the hundreds of thousands of freed slaves.
Hundreds of thousands unemployed. Go ahead.
In 1866, the state of Virginia feared that it would be overrun with dissolute and abandoned characters, passed an act providing for the punishment of vagrants. Homeless or unemployed persons could be forced into labor on public or private works for very low pay for a statutory maximum of 3 months. If fugitive and recaptured, they must serve the rest of their term at minimum subsistence.
So the minimum was 3 months, but they would catch brothers and make them serve 10 to 12 years prison terms. Kids, too. Go back to it.
Their term at a minimum substance wearing ball and chain.
Ball and chain. Go ahead.
In effect, though not in declared intent, the act criminalized attempts by impoverished, freed people to seek out their own families and rebuild their lives. The commanding general in Virginia, Alfred H. Terry, condemned the acts as a form of entrapment, the attempt reinstitution of slavery, and all but its name.
Basically, it's what it was. Go ahead.
He forbade its enforcement. It is not known how often it was applied or what was done to prevent its implementation, but it remained statute in Virginia until 1904.
It remained a statute in Virginia to 1904. Go ahead.
Other southern states enact similar laws in order to funnel blacks into their systems of convict leasing.
Convict
leasing.
Click on it. Let's show you what convict leasing is.
Do that
yeah, convict lease. Now stop right there. You see that picture, right? Them's young black men in the prime of their strength, the prime of their youth. Cursed in the city. So we went black codes, slave codes, vagrancy laws, convict leasing, right? Let's go to it. Let's read it.
Convict leasing was a system of penal labor practiced in the southern United States, an overwhelming targeting African American men. Convict leasing provided prisoner prisoner labor to private parties such as plantation owners and corporations.
What do they call it now? What is convict leasing now called today? Who knows what it's called? Matthias, what's it called today?
Incarceration.
Matthias. I mean, that's what it's called, but that ain't what the public calls it. Go ahead. Give it a Manasseh over here.
It's a trustee.
No, your brother's too deep. Give it a Jakim. Man.
It's our work release, right?
Yeah, they don't. Give John Levi, you the last one.
It's like when like a private organization get with somebody.
What is it called? I said, don't explain it to me. What's convict leasing called today?
I don't know the term.
Mass incarceration. School to prison pipeline. That's why, brothers, I said you got to research. These are stuff you got to bring out when explaining cursed in the city. When you know that history and you curse to the city and you start bringing this stuff, it makes perfect sense. That's talking about us. It's called mass incarceration today. School to prison pipeline. Go back to it. Back then it was called convict leasing. The same thing they do today. You go to jail and you work for AT&T for 12 cents an hour. Read it.
The leasee was responsible for feeding, clothing, and housing the prisoners. The state of Louisiana leased out convicts as early as 1844, but the system expanded all through the South with the emancipation of slaves at the end of the American Civil War in 1865.
So-called freedom. Now look at this. They have made, like I said, they have made up slave clothes, black coat, and I ain't even got to the other stuff that all happened within 2 years of freedom. Right? As soon as the Civil Wars ended, they got this stuff on the books waiting. That's why God said, these curses shall overtake thee. You can't run from it. Hold on, Zadok. Go ahead. Go back. Finish it out.
It could be lucrative for the states. In 1898, some 73% of Alabama's entire annual state revenue came from convict leasing.
73%. That's millions upon millions of dollars came from Negroes in prison. 73%. So the rest of the money was just, it said 1893. So the rest of the money came from all the liquor, probably, or cigarettes or something.
Hey, can you go back to the picture?
Up at the top.
No. Go back to the what we just read.
Oh, where we left off at.
Yeah.
Scroll back down.
What did we just read?
Right there. Go up some.
Read that again real quick.
It could be lucrative for the states. In 1898, some 73% of Alabama's entire annual state revenue came from convict leasing.
That's just one state.
That's one state. And this is a law for all.
For all. And that's just one state. So when people say blacks didn't build America, they don't know what the heck they talking about.
And you can see they was making money with us locked up and freed.
Damn.
They was making money however you cut it. They was making money off our backs.
Yep.
Because remember, with those black codes, slave codes, if you wasn't staying busy, working for a slave master, working for somebody, then we're going to lock you up and force you to work.
Yep.
Convict leasing.
Dang.
So it's really 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
Go to the video Slavery by Another Name.
Mr. President, I have a brother about 14 years old. A man hired him from me and I heard of him no more. He went and sold him to McGree and they's been working him in prison for 12 months. I asked him to let me have him, but he won't let him go.
For a period of nearly 80 years, between the Civil War and World War II, black Southerners were no longer slaves, but they were not yet free.
Move the black bars. Move the black bars.
In one of the most shameful and little-known chapters of American history, generations of black Southerners were forced to labor against their will.
From almost the first moment, white Southerners were responding to try to put African Americans back into a position as close to slavery as they possibly could.
That was one white man with
the Old South and what was quickly becoming the New South could not proceed without the work of African Americans.
But if you had something for free in the past, you don't necessarily want to pay for it now.
It was a straight, simple, exploitative system. There was only power, there was only force, and there was only brutality.
Look at that.
What happened in that period of time was so much more terrible than anything most Americans recognize or understand today.
Run it
The
back
depth of
again.
poverty, the inability.
Run it back again. I want you to listen to what he said. Because he says it real quick and it flies over a lot of people's head. Play that again.
What happened in that period of time was so much more terrible than anything most Americans recognize or understand today.
That's crazy. That's how
The
bad
depth
it
of
was.
poverty, the inability of African Americans to access any of the mechanisms of wealth achievement and growth are all rooted in this terroristic kind of regime that existed in so many places.
Terroristic regime.
Their ability to have what we call the American dream. That is what has been stolen from black folks all through the South. And that legacy has to be understood so that people will be able to speak to it and give our ancestors voice.
Cut. Lord have mercy. Cut the video. Now, you hear what he says? He says that we got to give voice to it so that you understand what our ancestors went through. That's why you got to know that's why you got to prepare your heart for the search of your fathers, because you bringing it out on the streets is going to help the people, our people who are now here, understand where they come from, so that the Lord don't keep us here longer and bring them back when it's their time to come on the earth, and they come right back in the same damn captivity.
Hey, Cap, can I add a point to what you're saying?
Man, that would be terrible. You wait back and you see this. You see the same dude that was, it's just in a different position, a different way. You come back in the same captivity because you're the ones that came after you didn't speak up for you. They didn't know nothing about you. Go ahead.
Yeah, because, we bring out and we're saying that these things occurred in slavery, but I'm going to read something that shows that this thing is currently going on in our present time. This article, it says 50 large American companies that use prison labor. Damn. And the article goes on to say, every day in the United States, over 1 million people go to work and make as little as 2 cents an hour.
Damn.
Next in the article, it says, today's private corporations profiting off of a new form of slavery, the private prison labor industry.
There you go.
Now, let's see who some of these companies. Victoria's Secret.
Uh-oh. Whoa! The sister's like, no!
Hey! That's good God. That's actually number 1 on the list.
Woo!
Next company, Whole Foods Market.
Ooh. Hey.
Sam's Club? Costco?
Who owns Sam's Club? Do you know?
Yeah, white dude.
Walmart.
Oh. Yeah. That's who.
They are third on the list.
All of us go to Walmart. Too.
So and the list goes on. The list also shows that we are still in that cycle of slavery. It hasn't changed.
And even more about the catch your convict leasing, right? Pull up that next article, right? You saw the slave codes, right? They restricted you. You got caught. You went into the prison convict leasing program. Pull up the Yahoo article. Read that for us, officer.
I got tired of hunting black and Hispanic people.
Read the date. When did that drop? Zoom in so they can see that.
December 8th, 2019.
Damn, they still out here hunting black folk. Hispanic people, you in there now too. They hunting you. And this is a black dude. It's a bunch of blacks and Hispanics like, I ain't working for New York no more. The new NYPD. You Malik Yoba fans, go ahead. Go to the article. Just read the article real quick. Read that, yeah.
New York, at a police station tucked into an end-of-the-line subway terminal in South Brooklyn.
Like they got in Walmarts now.
The new commander instructed officers to think of white and Asian people as soft targets and urged them to instead go after blacks and Latinos for minor offenses.
Slave codes. Go ahead.
Like jumping the turnstile. Or a half dozen officers said in sworn statements.
Go down.
You are stopping too many Russian and Chinese. One of the officers, Daniel Perez, recalled the commander telling him earlier this decade.
Read on.
Another officer, Aaron Diaz, recalled the same commander saying in 2012, you should write more black and Hispanic people.
Because we need them in this convict leasing program. We need them in this mass incarceration. Victoria's Secret needs to stay #1. Yep, we need more. Send them more this way. That's why they're building more schools and building more prisons and tearing down more schools. Why you think they're doing that? See, the white man thinks ahead. He thinks in the future. His thoughts is deep. He thinks this place is going to last forever. So if you tear down the schools that got less education, guess where they going to? Where they going, brothers? Straight back to convict leasing, which is what? Cursed in the city. Go to Deuteronomy 28:29.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 29. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
We have been oppressed with nobody saving us for so long because we went through black codes, slave codes, vagrancy laws, convict leasing. We went through that for so long and still continue to be oppressed through racial profiling and police brutality and redlining and low-paying jobs to the point now we have literally turned our back on the Bible altogether. And you know what's our savior? What's our savior right now that you see out here in the media that everybody's pushing? What is the black man's savior right now in America? Who knows what it is? Who watches the news? It's called Vote or Die. Every black person that got a media outlet is telling black people, you got to go vote. You got to go vote. You got to vote. Don't complain if you ain't out there voting. If you don't like your city representative, your state representative, go vote and change them. If you don't like this is Roland Martin. If you don't like the judge in your district, go out and vote and get them out of there. That's the last hope for black people. God said from the jump, ain't nobody going to save you. Now we on voting. I mean, I thought Obama proved that ain't gonna make a difference, but our people got selective amnesia on purpose.
I was, you just sparked a thought in my mind just now, Cap. If presidents were meant to save the nation, why they only get 4 years? Why they only get? They should be able to be in there till they die.
Yeah,
because they're saving the nation. They're supposed to save us. That let you know what they call it, the politics.
Yeah,
that stuff was never meant to save us.
Nah,
never.
Definitely not us as a people. So while you had all of those different things, now remember, you seen all the dates on those, right? What date did it say those was? 1865. The Emancipation Proclamation by Abraham Lincoln was signed in 1863. 2 years out the gate, they got a whole slew of laws to send you back to slavery. And you saw the image of the picture when it scrolled by. It wasn't nothing but our faces in that place. Nothing but Judah in that place, right? So while you had all that to deal with, remember, this is still 1865, 1866. You had to deal with this. Go to the video, A Brief History. Pull it up. Let's see what else we had to deal with. We had to run from the cops to make sure you didn't get caught because you didn't have a job, which they wouldn't give you a job, straight out of slavery. On top of that, you running from these folks right here. Now, I want you to turn down the sound on this and just let it play. And Officer Elisha, you can read it. Pull up the video because the music's annoying. Edomite music. Read
A brief history of the KKK.
So while you got all of that going on, you're running from
the Ku Klux Klan is America's most notorious white supremacist group. The Ku Klux Klan was established by some ex-soldiers.
Go back some. Go back some. You got to pause it while he's reading it. When did the Ku Klux Klan start, brothers?
Wow.
Look at it. That's what I'm saying. This is Judah. Y'all thought God was playing when he said cursed in the city. This is and now we understand that we are dealing with a man whom Job calls the king of terrors. God got unfathomable ways to curse you. And he can do it for however long he wants to. And the script said his anger shall burn forever. We ain't got forever. A lot of us in here done perished in whatever captivity it was, and got regenerated again right back into captivity because God said, I got all day to wait. You the one gonna go through this. They can't touch me.
Hey, Cap, you gotta imagine, you gotta paint your picture where you're sleeping at night and you waking up. To really visualize that, you
we're
gotta
gonna get the video too. We're gonna show you.
Wow.
We're gonna show you. This is what it said Judah. It said, be a help to Judah from his enemies. Go back to that.
Hey, you see the Shedemite in there too, right?
Yeah, she in there. But see, this is why. Now, remember last week I brought out island brothers and sisters. You come over here and you regurgitate the same thing the white man told said. Oh, them niggas is lazy. That's why they in the condition that they in. And you said it not knowing it. Not knowing the history of what Judah been through. So now we can remove that and come together as one nation. That's why we going through this stuff. And it's not to take away from Benjamin and Levi. Hell, I know you've been through that. I know you've been through slavery. All of us went through the curse. But when you understand what Judah went through and why the way they are, it's a lot to overcome. A lot to overcome, even in this day. That's why we are so important of going out and teaching our people who they are. Go back to it.
1865, the KKK was established by some ex-soldiers. According to the KKK, there is a revival taking place.
A revival in 2019. Look, pause it. Go back some. Let it play, and then I want you to pause it when that fire come up. Keep going. Pause it. Y'all know where that is? Y'all know where it is? Do y'all remember this scene taking place somewhere else? Where do y'all remember this scene taking place at? Benjamin, stand up. Where was this at? You had your hand up, Benjamin. Where did the scene like that just take place just a year or something ago?
It was at a particular, I can't remember the state, but.
Where was it at, though? What was it on?
Was it a college or something?
There you go. It was on a college campus in Virginia in 2017. Just right there. Look just like that. Revival. Go back. Let it play.
A film based on the KKK boosts their membership to over 5 million.
That's 1915. 1915. That's the Rebirth of a Nation video. Go ahead.
KKK members blamed for the lynching of 2 black men and a pregnant woman before cutting out her unborn baby.
Sisters, you got it too.
1946.
Now, everybody knows that picture right there. We all seen that when you Google slavery and lynchings. Let it play, and I want that thing to move out so you can see it. Let's see if it moves out. Okay, it don't.
The case remains unsolved. 1946.
I wonder why. Amazing. Go ahead.
During the civil rights movement, they increased their attacks on black people.
That's the 1960s. Go ahead. That's the city. That's the bomb.
It was rumored that some state officials had involvement in killings.
So
1960s.
Go ahead. State officials. That's when they bombed the church in Alabama.
Klan Watch sues the KKK for $7 million for the slaying of a black man. 1987. 2015. Today, they are estimated to have less than 10,000 members. They have a website which boasts a store of KKK merchandise along with a TV show.
Now, listen, why do you think it went from 5 million to 10,000? Let's see who's thinking. Ebenezer, why would it go? Because these people ain't changed. They still here. Why would the numbers go down?
Earlier in the day, it was overt. Now it's more covert.
All right. So how did it change? What? Give me the example. Where did they go? Give it to Naeem behind you. You millennials.
They became our judges.
There you go.
They became our, you know what I'm saying, presidents, politicians, and all that. They
And what else? What else they become?
Cops.
There you go. They took off the white and put on the blue.
Hey, that's why it's 10 times harder for a black man, a Judite brother, to get in the police force than any other race.
Yep.
The black man is the race that's the hardest to get into the police force. But they gotta have one.
Yeah.
They may have
for what you call it? Affirmative action.
Yeah, affirmative action. They gotta have one, and that's that one. That he's the tip top best of them all.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly right. All right. Let's see. Is that it on that video? Go back to it. Let's see.
The KKK is just one of many white supremacist movements in the USA.
He's yelling white power. He's yelling black power. Okay, let's back at it. Go to the next video that's about Mississippi museums. Explore slavery, Klan era. Now I put this up. Turn the sound back on. I'll put this up so you can see how close it is. Because it was started in the 1860s, but it's right now. Go ahead.
Centennial by opening 2 history museums under one roof. The Museum of Mississippi History covers wide-ranging topics from Native American culture, the Civil War, to more recent events, including Hurricane Katrina.
Originally, before they started burning crosses, they left caskets on your doorstep, basically saying you're next.
Pause it. Y'all hear that? Run it back again for the people. Right ahead.
To more recent events, including Hurricane Katrina.
Originally, before they started burning crosses, they left caskets on your doorstep, basically saying you're next.
Damn. That's terror. That's cursed in the city. Leaving caskets on your doorstep. Just imagine waking up for work in the morning, you come out and see that. A casket in front of your house. You ain't even going to work that day. You're going to turn right back around in the house and lock the door. Pack it up and move it. Right? Hey, you call it all the Israelite brothers. All hands on deck. Let's go. Go back to the video. Let it play.
And this painting was made about 1859.
Look like Phineas.
Next door, the Civil Rights Museum looks at a complex chapter in the state's history from 1945 till 1976, the efforts to break down segregation and the violent backlash against it.
I hope it never happened to anybody else.
Listen to her.
Regardless of what color.
Listen.
One display
Listen to the
tells
story
of the
when she come up.
1966 firebombing of Vernon Dahmer's home, a local NAACP leader. His wife recounts trying to quiet their 10-year-old daughter during the attack.
They were shooting in the house. My husband was returning fire. We was trying to keep her quiet so they wouldn't know where to shoot us at. But she was screaming so loud, Lord have mercy, we don't get burned up in this house alive.
Finally, Dahmer and her small children were able to escape, but Dahmer was killed.
6 of his 7 sons served in the military for a total of 78 years.
Vernon Dahmer was on active duty at the time of his father's death.
To come home and see what had happened was totally devastating.
That was his father.
My family was homeless. My dad had died. My little sister had been burned. I had to just pick it up and, hey, move forward.
The museum reflects how the state has also moved forward since that time.
Pause it.
They're bad.
That's real. That's what happened to her. They shooting through the house. Women and children in there, and the baby's crying, trying to keep it quiet so they don't know where to shoot the bullets at. The father ended up dying. And it said it real quick. 6 of his 7 sons served in the military for America. Didn't matter.
You know what's heavy about that video cap? You can no longer say slavery was a long time ago.
Nope, that's why I pulled it.
Those people are alive and still can recount the experience.
That's exactly why I pulled it, because a lot of us think, oh, it's in the past. No, you got a living, breathing mother right there that went through KKK. All right, Deuteronomy 28:16.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 16. Cursed shall I be in the city, and cursed shall I be in the field.
So now it says, cursed shall thou be in the city, so much till it got to the point of this. Read verse 34.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 34. So that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see.
We've been cursed so long in the cities of America that people have gone crazy when it comes to the Bible. God speaks to me. I got a personal relationship. Some people are on the other end of being so crazy is they don't want nothing to do with the Bible. Some people will be outright cool with you until you pull out the Bible, and then you will see a demon jump on them that you didn't even know existed in that person. You didn't even know they had that type of personality. That's because they are gone mad. They are mad for the stuff that they have been through, the oppression we continue to go through on a yearly basis. Jump up to verse 65.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 65. And among these nations thou shalt find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night.
With all of those things we just went through, that's summing up. There is no rest for you. Soon as you got out of slavery, now they got the KKK to terrorize you. You couldn't even go sleep at night because they'll shoot through your window when you got a little baby in the house. Your wife is in there. Your sons are away in the army right now. They can't help you. That brother said, when I came home, my daddy was dead. And the baby was burnt. There's no ease. It says, thy life shall hang in doubt. Read on. Verse 66.
And shall fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, would God it were even. And at even thou shalt say, would God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see.
Go to the article, Jim Crow. It ain't over. It ain't over, y'all. It ain't over. That's just in the first few years. And the black codes, the convict leasing, that lasted 80 years. And now Jim Crow, they just threw on you as in the States. That lasted up until the Civil Rights era, 1960s. And that was enacted in the 1800s. Go to it, Jim Crow. Read that.
Jim Crow laws.
This is for you young men don't know nothing about this. You millennials, you better be writing this stuff down. This is the stuff that happened before you. Prepare thy heart to the search of thy fathers. This is it. Read it.
The segregation and disenfranchisement laws known as Jim Crow represented a formal codified system of racial
apartheid
that dominated the American South for 3/4 of a century, beginning in the 1890s.
That's 75 years of Jim Crow, separate and unequal. It's about to say it. Read it.
The laws affected almost every aspect of daily life, mandating segregation of schools, parks, libraries, drinking fountains, restrooms, buses, trains, and restaurants. Whites only and colored. Signs were constant reminders of the enforced racial order.
Now, right now, you knowing you Israel, you ain't like in your mind, you ain't got no problem with that. Like, shoot, that's cool. I don't want to sit on the toilet they sit on anyway. Nasty. You say that now, but the difference is that if you had your own stuff, it wouldn't be kept up. Where you get your supplies from to even have your own separate stuff? Where you get it from, brothers? Your oppressors. So just say if they think, nah, we're not selling to you niggas today. Nah, go on somewhere. We don't want your money today. That restroom, that public transportation, that housing, that schooling would all begin to decay over a process of time. All of it. Go to the video of the nation's biggest collection to show you what happened during the 80 years of the separate and unequal stuff that Judah had to live through on top of the other slave codes, black codes, vagrancy laws, convict leasing program, all of that they had to live through during that time. And then here comes Jim Crow. Show you the stuff that was made during that time. And just ask yourself, what does that do for the psyche of people that have to live through that? Play the video. Move the bars.
I started collecting racist objects when I was a teenager, and the stuff was everywhere.
Jim
At
Crow
a certain
Museum.
point, I ended up with thousands of pieces. I didn't know what I would do with it. I just thought a lot about what it meant to be a person of color living during Jim Crow. Had no intention of creating a museum, but the collection kept growing. So in the 1990s, I gave my collection to the university. It took 15 years, but in 2012, we opened this museum.
Pause it. You know how much memorabilia you gotta have to open a museum? You know how much it gotta be? One man by himself had enough to open a museum on a college campus. During Jim Crow. 80 years worth of it. Go back to it.
15 years, but in 2012, we opened this museum. I have lots of respect for museums that celebrate African American history, that celebrate African American accomplishment, but that's not what this facility was. I wanted to create.
Okay, I want you to stop at 141, okay? Go ahead. Right on the dot of 141. Let it
an
go.
Actual racism facility to have people focused on this specific topic in terms of our history.
So if you just have a society with millions of just postcards like this, does that reinforce certain ideas about black people?
Postcards during Jim Crow.
Some of the best discussions we have in the museum are about the word nigger, which sounds kind of weird, by the way, because I'm a sociologist and we don't believe words have any inherent meaning. They're just sound signs that we give. But we do believe that people, once the meanings are given, that they are shared.
I mean, no piece is inherently racist. It's a racist society which will create racist objects and will racialize other objects. That's why the watermelon has a racial. There's nothing inherent about a watermelon that makes it racist. But you know darn well that it's been racialized.
Someone looking at Aunt Jemima.
Now look at the picture in the back of the sister in the yellow. Does that look like somebody that's in a commercial today? I saw that thing. I was like, hold up the hell. Pull up the other picture. Can you do a side by side for the people? I saw this. I was like, oh, they the devil. And Negroes is out there killing people over chicken and they don't even know what they done did behind the scenes. Can you pull them up for us? All right. I'm telling you, man, You think that your oppressor has changed? No, he just got better at his tactics, man. Making mockery of people out there in lines, wrecking cars, fighting over chicken. Ooh, pull that up for us, man. Where it at? Where we at? Look at that. I know, that's why I made sure I got that picture. I'm talking about the one that's in the back on the yellow. They went and got him a modern day auntie mama to sell Negroes chicken. Same smile and everything. And Negroes think that that black woman right there makes the chicken at Popeyes. I saw that, I was like, oh, they the devil. Got you, modern day auntie mama. Okay, go back to the video. I just wanted to see if y'all saw what I saw. Play the video.
Objects or other mammy images.
They look exactly like
They don't think of that as
with a hair
offensive.
wrap.
They think of good times spent with their families. It's very nostalgic. Someone else looking at those same pieces, they see the vestiges of slavery and segregation. So often we're not deciding that something is racist, but what we are doing are collecting pieces that help us talk about racism. We have lots of friends of the museum, and we receive hundreds of pieces a year. The first director of the museum said to me one day, hey, there's a couple.
Let it play.
Couple guys I want you to meet.
You cut it. Cut that. I don't want to look at Esau. Okay, go back to Deuteronomy 28. Let's read verse 16 again.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 16. Cursed shall I be in the city.
Okay, stop right there. Now, can a brother name to me some ways that we was cursed in the city? Name them. We just went over them. Let's see who's taking notes. Abel, name them for us.
Mass incarceration.
What was it called? What was it called?
Incarceration leasing.
Convict leasing.
Convict leasing.
Okay.
Yes. Also, black codes.
Black codes.
And the Jim Crow laws.
Black codes were also called what?
Black codes was vagrant.
Slave codes.
Slave codes, yes, sir.
Black codes were called slave codes. Read on. Go ahead.
Yeah, and
what was the one you
vagrant.
used? Vagrancy.
Yeah, vagrancy
laws.
Yes, sir.
Those are some of the ways we was cursed in the city. So it's on you now to go study those things that can help explain what cursed in the city means to bring out as you teach. Read verse 16 again.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 16. Cursed shall I be in the city, and cursed shall I be in the field.
What did we do in the fields of America? What did Judah do? Just say it, brothers. Pick cotton. Pull up the link that I got. It's a link in the group right up under the video. It's called Slavery in the Cotton Fields. It's on Google, but I posted the link because I looked this up. This is when Paul talks about your profession, this is what he means. Like, God gave you the word, the field, the city. Now, as a professional, you dive deeper behind the word. What does that actually mean? What happened in those fields? What happened in that city? That's how you become a professional, where nobody can tell you, no, that didn't happen. America ain't never been great for us. Here's the proof. And they walk off astonished. Is this it right here? It should be a link. It's a link. It's not a video. It's the link that's right up under the one the video you just showed. Or just go to Google. Let me see y'all. Go to Google. Y'all wasting my time. Come on, man. Go to Google. Go to Google. Go to Google. No. X out. X out. X out. Go to Google. And just type in slavery in the cotton fields. Woo. Okay. Read that for us.
Slavery in the cotton fields. There were different types of slave, such as field workers and house slaves, or servants. Most worked as field hands on cotton plantations. Men, women, and children did back-breaking work in the cotton fields, clearing land, planting, tending, and harvesting, picking the cotton.
All right, go down to, scroll down on this and go, people also ask. Okay, so hold on. What did slaves do? Let's see. How much cotton did slaves pick? I want to read that one. Click on that one.
Let us focus first on picking per hand. Earl, page 33 through 34, asserted a male worker of ordinary skill customarily picked at the rate of about 200 pounds per day. Projecting this rate over the picking season, a worker could gather 13,000 pounds of cotton in a short season and 17,000 pounds of cotton in a normal one.
How much does cotton weigh, like a single pick of a cotton? Have you ever picked that up? Is it like 5-10 pounds every single piece you pick? It's maybe half an ounce if it weigh anything. And the average, go back to it, in the field, how much they have to pick?
200 pounds per day.
Average. You know how much cotton it is? You know how big that field had to be for each slave to pick 200 pounds of cotton? And it lasted for months from the moment that it first budded all the way until the crop died off in the winter. It was work from sun up to sundown every day. Go back to it. Because this is cursed in the field, right? Go to how did the cotton gin affect slaves? It's the next one. Right there, right? Now, if you don't know, Eli Whitney, a slave, made the cotton gin. He made it to make picking cotton easier for the people. For us, right? He was thinking. We smart people. But let's see what plans God had for that cotton gin. Read it.
While it was true that the cotton gin reduced the labor of removing seeds, it did not reduce the need for slaves to grow and pick the cotton. In fact, the opposite occurred.
No man shall save thee. Not even, he can't even make a machine to make this slavery easy on you, God said.
He made it harder.
It got it. No. You Negroes think you smart. You got a punishment to serve.
Hey, Cap, you ever tried picking cotton?
No.
Why I say that, because if you ever experience the picking of cotton, eventually the cotton plant itself, it pricks your finger and it causes you to bleed. Imagine to pick 200 pounds of cotton. How their fingers,
how hard it must have been.
At some point, if you barely touch the cotton, it will hurt your hand because of so much pain.
They just had to work through it.
And
it's going to say that too. Watch this. Go back to it. Go back to that. We cursed in the field.
In fact, the opposite occurred. Cotton growing became so profitable for the planters that it greatly increased their demand for both land and slave labor.
So they went and got more slaves. Guess where you think they snatched up the slaves from? Anybody ever heard of 12 Years a Slave? Show of hands. Who's seen that movie? Why you think they went and got Solomon Northup? The cotton gin. We need more niggas to pick his cotton. He done made it easier. Go snatch him up north and bring him down south. Now you understand why he was snatched up. Go to what did field slaves eat? What did field slaves eat?
Weekly food rations, usually cornmeal, lard, some meat,
pig butt, like you like to say,
molasses, peas, greens, and flour were distributed every Saturday. Vegetable patches or gardens, if permitted by the owner, supplied fresh produce to add to the rations. Morning meals were prepared and consumed at daybreak in the slaves' cabins.
So that's what you're eating. Cornmeal, which it really ain't nothing. Lard, grits, some meat, which was actually, it was the pig. You ate the slops of the pig. Judah, molasses, the peas, all of that just so you can work a 12-hour shift, right? Go to the link that says, what age did slaves start working? Go back. What age? Read that.
Some say that children were forced to perform field labor duties as young as the age of 6.
Cursed in the field. 6 years old. We got 6 years old in there right now. Imagine them going to, and they got to, and they might not have to pick 200 pounds of cotton like a grown man, but they better bring in their field 50, 100 pounds of cotton, whatever it might be, depending on how good he was with his fingers. It's a picture of how many seen that picture of the little baby picking cotton and got a little bag on his back? How many seen that by showing his? Okay, we got to pull it up. Go, babies picking cotton. So you can see what it's talking about. So this thing can be real. So now you know, when it's talking about cursed in the field, 6 years old, you was out there. Pull it up. Bring over Google for us. Bring it over. Boom. There you go. No, the first one. I want the real one. I don't want the made up one. Yeah. There you go, right there. Bring it over. There we go. And he ain't even 6, is he? That baby ain't 4. That baby about 2.5, almost 3. Yeah, officer. Microphone up front. 6 years old, cursed in the field.
I was reading a book, and in the book it said, it didn't say 6. It said as soon as they started to walk, they started having them pick cotton.
There you go. That baby. So go back to that picture. Pull that picture up if you can. That baby is probably waddling through the cotton field. Can't even talk. Can't even form sentences picking cotton. Where the picture at? You got the picture? Yeah. There you go. That baby can hardly walk. And you know that bag is heavier than him. He ain't even tall enough to keep it off the ground, so you know it's extra force on the little baby. Cursed in the field. All right, go back to that. Click on that link about the 6-year-old that we had on that tab. That's what it was.
Some say that children were forced to perform field labor duties as young as the age of 6. It is argued that in some areas, children were put to regular work in the antebellum South. Antebellum South, and there was a time when slaves began to learn work routines, but also work discipline and related punishment.
So they got punished. They was whipping the little babies to a certain extent so they can get used to it when they got older. Go to the article, Field Slaves in the United States. I think it's an article. Yep, read it real quick.
Field slaves in the United States. Field hands were slaves who labored in the plantation fields. They commonly were used to plant, tend, and harvest cotton, sugar, rice, and tobacco.
Go scroll down. Read that.
Field slaves were given one outfit annually.
Oh, that's what I wanted. Field slave, no, chores. Read chores.
Oh, sorry. Chores. Field slaves usually worked in the fields from sunrise to sundown.
As soon as the sun come up, you best be in that field, boy. And your baby with you too today to teach them. Soon as it came up. You know what? One thing I hate about work the most is, and it reminds me that I'm still a slave. When I hear this, I know it's time to what? Stop working and go eat, nigga. And then I'm sitting down relaxing. Let's go. It's time to get back on this plantation. And let you be 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes late. You just strolling in at your own time. Guess who's sitting there right there waiting on you, looking at you, looking at the watch? The overseer. So the plantation didn't change. It's just more organized now. And wait till you young ones start working. And everybody gonna be working, and you're gonna hear it like it. And all the slaves gonna stop and go walk right into, like zombies, walking into the lunchroom. Especially here in Florida, and the only people going is you and your brother Ephraim. Sitting in there. All Spanish conversation. Yeah. I look around, ain't nobody but us and Northern Kingdom sitting in here. Nariah, real quick. I'm running out of time. Go ahead.
Like even the school bell, like once you hear the school bell, you know it's
You know, yeah. It's to train you. Go back to the article real quick. But it's even worse when you got to do it for low wages, Nariah. Wait till you start doing that.
Field slaves usually
quick. You gotta read it quick.
Field slaves usually worked in the fields from sunrise to sundown while being monitored by an overseer. The overseer was there to make sure that the slaves did not slow down or cease their field work until the day was over.
So if the hand started bleeding, he whipped you on your back to make sure you didn't slow it. Well, no, my hands hurt.
Now your back hurt.
Yep. Let that focus on that pain. Read the clothing. This is what I want to read that quick.
Clothing. Field slaves were given one outfit annually.
One outfit annually.
During the winter time, field slaves were given additional clothing or material to make additional clothes in order to keep them warm.
Additional cloth. So you got the rags and tags. The stuff they rip off and give to you. Go ahead. Read that real quick.
Children. In general, slave children received little to no clothing until they reached puberty, after which time they were given gender-appropriate clothing.
They gave the girls dresses and they gave the boys the pants, but until he was out there naked working. Kids out there naked in the field. Go ahead.
Women were given long dresses to wear in the summer. During the
long dresses in the summer in Alabama, Mississippi. Dresses. Go ahead.
Women were given long dresses to wear in the summer. During the winter, they made themselves a shawl and pantalettes. Women often wore turbans on their heads, covering their hair.
You the Israelites. You been a slave. You do to throw that thing on your head so you won't pass out in the field. Men, read that.
Men were given pants to wear during the summer, while in the winter they were also given long coats to wear.
Scroll down meals. Let's see meals real quick. See how long it is. Okay, I'm gonna skip it. Go to the video from Joy DeGroy. Play the video from 4120. She's gonna describe to you what it was like in the field. Joy DeGroy, read that. We almost finished. Headquarters about to come on. Man, I got some more. Hold on, we ain't got no sound. 4120.
Right? And then our ancestors will work to death. To death. Recently, they unearthed the slave cemetery. They unearthed actually a slave cemetery in New York City. It's on Wall Street, by the way, in the shadow of the bull.
Wall Street,
unearthed
New York.
Slave cemetery, and they still to this day they're struggling. They recently, have done a lot in terms of commemoration. I went to it took me everything to get to it. They had it blocked off so you couldn't get to it, but because they didn't want to deal with it. You can't just bulldoze a cemetery. So here in all these skyscrapers, in the middle of it is this little cemetery. And there are slaves in that cemetery. More important than that was what the bones told us.
Listen to this.
Now, you got CSI. Hell, I can go in there and tell you what's going on now. So with the CSI thing, now they've discovered a little bit about the bones. And to me, the most phenomenal thing about the bones is what they told us about those people and how they live. Majority of the people in there were children, infants and children, high mortality, infant mortality rate. They even know what they died of. Died of malnutrition and starvation, because they could tell by the rotting of the teeth and the jawline.
Just a few rations.
So even though they most likely grew food, they weren't allowed to eat it.
You plant seed and you shall not eat of it. And then they found something even more peculiar
that speaks to this idea of why he believed we required less sleep. They would show a large frame man, and they would find an injury where the muscle actually detached itself from the bone as a result of exertion and not injury. Stay with me. It detaches itself from the bone as a result of exertion. That means you work so hard, the muscle detached itself from the bone. You don't see those kind of injuries in contemporary society because no one's going to work that hard. Unless, of course, you have a gun trained on you from
let it play.
Sunrise to sunset. So we do have empirical evidence.
Pause.
How hard.
You know how hard you got to work for the muscle to say, I'm getting the hell up out of here. The muscle jumped off the bone, y'all. It's too much Read Deuteronomy 28 and 16 again.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 16. Cursed shall I be in the city, and cursed shall I be in the field.
Until the muscle jumps off the bone. That's how bad it's going to be in the field. Go back to the video and let's play 3705 up to 4120. 3705 to 4120. Because now that first part, you remember it said that they found those bones in New York. In New York, a cemetery full of slaves at Wall Street. That's why I said the first commodity on the stock market was Negroes in America. It was you being bought and sold and traded. And you died from the physical labor, they just buried you right there at Wall Street and put a concrete street over you. And she said it was in the shadow of the bull. So that's right down there where the stock market trade is. That big old bull you see sitting out there. It is right there. Union Square is what it's called. Read play 3705 to 4120.
Sally Hemings.
Now, pause.
So it didn't smell.
She's talking about the person that said that they didn't need sleep. Thomas Jefferson. He's the one that owned the slaves. She's talking about Thomas Jefferson said that Negroes don't need sleep. One of the founding fathers on your nickel. Mount Rushmore. Let the video play.
That bad, huh? Now here's a more important one. He said we required less sleep. Now that one's more interesting to me. Why would he need to? What dissonance was he feeling that he would need to believe that blacks required less sleep? Why? What did he do? You know, he owned slaves. So what do you think? How hard do you think he worked them? What was a work day for a slave? Sunrise to sunset. But do you have any empirical evidence, Joy? Can you prove that? Because you know, if you can't write, count it and measure it, it didn't happen in European culture. Is that correct? Got to count it and measure it. How many of you have measurable objectives?
European culture.
Measurable outcomes. You better measure it. I don't care if you tell them. Can you tell your boss really, truly, at the end of the year, we're doing better now?
Ishmael, no.
I've been to work every single day I've watched, and I can guarantee you we're doing better. Is that going to fly? That would be no. That means you have to count it and measure it. And if you didn't count it and measure, it didn't happen.
4120.
So when you start looking at the notion of requiring less sleep, that's an interesting thing, because I have to believe if I work you that hard. And boy, I got humbled when I found out how hard folks worked in the sugar plantations.
Listen.
Ooh-wee, I got humbled by how hard folks in the Caribbean were worked.
Benjamin, Levi.
But what I decided to do is I looked at the Library of Congress. Most of my work over the 9 years that it took to write the book, 6 years of that was research. The other part of it had to do with doing interviews of elders and reading slave narratives, and there are thousands of them. This is just one taken from the Library of Congress. Sarah Gudger from North Carolina wrote, "Never known nothing but work, never knew rest, felt like my back was going to break. This the gospel truth."
Damn.
Then I looked at what happened in the sugar plantations.
You know what it's like to have some back pain? Who had back pain in here before? She said, felt like my back was going to break. I don't know what rest feel like. Let it play, man.
And this was amazing. One final set of grim numbers underlines the way slaves on sugar plantations like Codrington, was a plantation in Barbados, were systematically worked to an early death. When slavery ended in the United States, slaves imported over the centuries had grown to a population of nearly 4 million. When it ended in the British West Indies, total slave imports of well over 2 million left a surviving slave population of only about 670,000. More than twice as many slaves were shipped to the island of Jamaica alone than all 13 North American colonies combined. The Caribbean was a slaughterhouse.
You was catching it too.
In fact, the reason why there was more importation of slaves to these plantations is because they died so frequently. They were treated so badly, ate so poorly, that females never reached their menstrual cycles.
Damn.
They never actually started their menstrual cycles, so they couldn't reproduce, you see. And so many of them died, they had to import more. That's how treacherous was, you lazy black folks that you are. Isn't that ironic, though? What's so ironic is black people run from the shame.
Listen to this.
Of feeling like they're perceived as lazy.
Because we all live like this.
I mean, I live with that so much that when I would go to hotels, I would leave it cleaner. Because your mother, everybody's mother taught you, leave it cleaner than you found it. So black folks are so hypersensitive, I was cleaning up the hotel room. Because I wouldn't want anyone to think I'm dirty. Right? Now, other people in the audience that are of color, how much harder did your parents tell you you had to work to get to even? How much harder? You had to work twice as hard. Now, how come I knew that about you? How come I knew that? Think about it. And yet at the same time, white people think we're lazy, you see? But we're so hypersensitive because of the shame, right? And then our ancestors will work to death.
Now, all of y'all that know the sayings that she just said, and you was able to repeat them word for word, that lets you know that mentally, you're still a slave. And that has been passed down from generation to generation upon you, and you didn't even know that that came from slavery. You just thought it was a way of life. This is what we do as people. I'm going to skip some. Go to the video of sharecropping. This is going to be the last one of Cursed in the Field. It's just one verse. Cursed in the Field, sharecropping. Play that sharecropping video, because headquarters is about to come on. And Bishop going to bring it out today. Got a lot going on. Play that video.
Throughout the 1870s and 80s across the South, African Americans continued to lose more and more ground economically, politically, in every way. The ex-Confederates, before the Civil War, had wealth because of land and slaves. Now, they've lost their slaves, but they haven't lost their land. The wealthiest, most elite landowners were able to come back to their former position and status in the state. The way that they were able to do this was by instituting as a substitute for slave labor, sharecropping labor.
The whole labor process after the Civil War for free people goes through stages.
Write that down.
You know, first it's that contract that the Freedmen's Bureau is helping to negotiate. Then you start to see in some of the labor contracts something that approaches what we'll eventually call sharecropping.
Imagine being like that all day, 12 hours.
Because I was a slave. I don't own any land. I don't own a home. I don't own much of anything. For 20 years, I had been a slave. I'd been involved in agricultural labor, but you can't farm without land. And because one of the failures of the Freedmen's Bureau was its efforts to redistribute abandoned and confiscated lands because they were reclaimed by their Confederate owners, you find that freed blacks' only recourse is to become a part of the system where I get to farm your land, and in exchange you are promised a portion of my harvest, which sounds really good, but I don't have any power in that. One, I have to farm your land. Two, I need supplies to farm your land, which means I probably am running up a credit with you. Three, you're the one that's keeping track of the credit. And four, I'm going to probably have to sell my crop to you anyway. And you're going to tell me what it's valued. You're going to take whatever portion of it that you want. And I might be upside down at the end of every season, which means that instead of you owing me, I now owe you. And attached to that, this horrible cycle of debt is really the perilousness of agriculture and farming, because I can't guarantee a good season. I can't guarantee there's not going to be a drought, there's not going to be a rain, there's not going to be a bug that comes in and swallows up the crop.
Sharecropping was a terribly unfair, cruel institution. The sharecroppers were never able to make enough money to buy pieces of land, and thus they were held to the land in a situation not unlike slavery.
Another thing to include in that is everybody was hurt because in some places in Tennessee and Mississippi and so on, the majority of sharecroppers were white. Poverty was stalking the South after Reconstruction among whites and blacks, but it was worse among black sharecroppers.
Always
because
is.
now they had no political rights, they had no economic rights whatsoever.
Pause it. So what happens if the white folk are the sharecroppers in a particular state and you can't work on the plantation? What was the next step that happened to black folks? What was it called, brothers? What was it? But what was it? Brother right there, brother, give it to him, microphone.
It's called convict leasing.
Convict leasing. They threw your ass in jail. And he said that you can never get up. So you can work for, you got to sell them back the stuff you picked for them. They give you a portion of it, and if it ain't enough, they say you in debt. You got to work for me another year. And then the same thing happened the next year, the next year, the next year, next year. You be a slave forever. But you was free. Go to Deuteronomy 32:28. We about to end it, so headquarters, come on.
Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 28.
Read it quick.
For they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them.
That's us. We are void of counsel, and there's no understanding in us of what God meant when he said, cursed in the city and cursed in the field. We didn't understand that. Read on.
Oh, that they were wise.
Oh, that they were wise. Read on.
That they understood this.
That they understood this. Jump back up to verse 22 and read quickly. It's what say, oh, that they was wise, that they understood this, what we're about to read. Read that.
Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 22. For a fire is kindled in mine anger, and shall burn unto the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set on fire the foundation of the mountains. I will heap mischief upon them. I will spin mine arrows upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger, and devoured with burning heat, and with bitter destruction. I will also send the teeth of beasts upon them.
Gator bait.
With the poison of serpents of the dust. The sword without and terror within.
Sharecropping, Jim Crow, vagrancy laws, black codes, slave codes. Go ahead.
Shall destroy both the young man and the virgin.
6 years old, 2 years old, 3-year-olds. God didn't care.
The suckling also with the man of gray hairs.
The old man and the young man. You worked until you died. And you worked as soon as you was born. Read verse 29 again.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 29. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this.
That they understood how I really get down. When I speak a word, and you better sit and examine yourself to the utmost of what you're about to do, because I got all of this waiting on you. My anger is on a whole nother level. Remember, the scriptures say that he can kill you in one rough word. He didn't decide to do that. He just put you in slavery for 400 years and sent you through everything we just went over today. And has it ended yet, brothers? So guess what? God is still what? He's still angry. He's still angry. Read that again.
Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end.
That they would consider their latter end. So that's just, that's verse 16. That was verse 16 of what happened to Judah in America.
We used to scream black power while Heron was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission, minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold, from Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.